Eddie.
Morning.
If I can just start with the departure of Dan Ashworth this week, we put on garden leave. How disruptive has the last couple of weeks been in that respect? Losing Dan?
Yeah, I think the day-to-day running of the football club, not at all. I think it's something that's happened sort of away from the players and the training ground. So, it's been business as usual for us. It's just been a normal week.
Does it show how far the club has come in terms of now Newcastle on the upper hand in terms of having to strike a compensation deal with Manchester United if Dan is to go straight away?
I think that's something that I won't comment on. That's for other people to decide now. I'm just concentrating on running the team.
If I can ask about injury news ahead of tomorrow night, how are Alexander Isak and Joe Willock doing?
Yeah, they've trained this week. It's been good to see them back on the grass. Been a long time for Joe, but he's a huge player for us. It's been great to see him back in amongst the group. Very popular member of the squad. So yeah, really pleased for him this week. With Alex, again, really important player. He's trained very well. So yeah, we're happy with both players.
Will they be involved in the match this week?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. We've got one more training session, but been pleased with their progress, as I say.
Yeah, if I can just ask about the reverse fixture at St James's Park against Arsenal. I think you described it as Newcastle's one of the best intensity and high tempo games that you've had this season. Will you need to replicate that at the Emirates tomorrow?
Well, certainly we will need to replicate close to our best performance in order to get something from the game. I think we've had some really good games against Arsenal in recent seasons, very tight affairs. Last season at the Emirates was a really battling performance from us. Defensively, we're going to need to be improved than we have been in recent weeks. So that's the challenge for us. I think Arsenal this season have been very, very good in every aspect of the game. Statistically, one of the best teams in the league. They're rightly where they are in the table, so a big challenge for us.
Bruno, of course, played a vital part in the reverse fixture as well. I think you said lived on the edge that day with some of the tackles he was putting in. How important will he be again tomorrow?
Well, I think you need your creative players to fire. You need your defensive players to fire as well in a different way. And I think he had that balance right in the home game where he was very competitive. But he was also very good technically. And I think we need, as I said, all of our players to fire in all departments really.
Do you think the fact that he has got that 10th yellow card looming, do you think that might take away from his performance, or do you think he's managed it well so far?
I think he's managed it really well so far. I think he's been in his normal self. He hasn't, for me, looked like it's conscious in his mind when he's playing, because I don't think it can be. But he's played with discipline, and he's done a great job for the team.
And if I can just ask, in terms of the tight turnaround that Arsenal might have had, you know quite well in the Champions League campaign that you had early in the season. They just played on Wednesday night. Do you think that might play into your favour as well, that they had a game midweek?
I think with our experience in the Champions League, I think we found that it wasn't a problem playing midweek in lead up to the next game, as long as we had a squad available that we could potentially rotate to keep players fresh. Arsenal have the squad to do that, so I've got no doubts that the midweek game won't affect their performance.
And how important is it to get a result at the Emirates in terms of keeping up the push for European football this season?
Yeah, it's another important game for us. I think we recognise the importance of every game. We're in that position where we're desperate for 3 points. We're desperate to try and close the gap on the teams above us, so we've got a lot to be motivated for.
And just the final one from me, we got asked off a fan on Total Sport this week. Lewis Hall's situation, is he getting any closer to reaching the criteria needed to make his loan move a permanent one?
Yeah, well, I think he's getting closer with every game. So while I'm not sort of on top of that on a daily basis, I'm sure he's very close.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Keith, morning, Eddie. 21-2 is Arsenal's aggregate scoreline in the last 5 games. 5-0 win, 5-0 win, 6-0 win. Lots of goals in Newcastle's matches as well, but obviously you've conceded more this season, I think, than you would have wanted. Is that a bit of a concern going into this game, knowing the amount of goals that Arsenal are hammering in right now?
Yeah, it's amazing how football works, isn't it? So yeah, you would think there's going to be goals in the game off the back of what you say, but football works in strange ways. I just think we can only focus on us. We have to defend much better than we have done in recent weeks. I've got no doubt we're capable of doing that. We've got the players to do it, but we need to deliver that. And that's a responsibility, as I said many times, of the whole team, not just any part of the team.
Mikel Arteta was certainly aggrieved after the defeat back in November, and when you've played against the top teams, it feels like, well, I think we've spoken about it here before, that Newcastle perhaps getting under the skin of some of the big clubs. Do you think perhaps Arsenal are one of them? It feels maybe like the last couple of years that there's been a lot more in this fixture. Is there maybe a little bit of a grudge match element about it?
I don't know. Yeah, of course the last game was made headlines, I think. It's probably the best way of putting it for what happened with the goal and everything that happened afterwards. I don't know if we look at it that way. We just look at it as another opponent to try and beat.
Yeah.
We prepare the same way. We analyse the opponent very, very forensically to try and find the best way to get a positive result. Everything else is sort of created outside of that, and I'm sure for Arsenal it's exactly the same. That they're trying to prepare as well as they can for us, the team, not anything else.
In terms of the injuries, you spoke about Alex Isak and Joe Willock both close there. You've also had Harvey coming back recently as well. I know you're probably loath to say this given the year you've had.
I'm not going to say it.
No. Does it feel like you're coming through the worst of it, maybe?
Yeah, as I say, I can't say yes to that for obvious reasons. But we hope that we're got a stronger squad than we had a few weeks ago. We're going to need that for the rest of the season. We're still losing some key players from our squad at the moment, some players that would make a huge difference. But certainly from where we were a few weeks ago, it does look a bit stronger.
And on Dan Ashworth, I know you said it is business as usual for you guys on the front line, so to speak. But with him now on gardening leave, does that give you a little bit of closure without that kind of hanging over and maybe dominating everyone's thought process? Yeah,
certainly the events this week have given that sort of certainty, which I think I said in my press conference last week was really what we needed as a football club. So we've got that now, and as I say, we move forward and look to the future.
And in terms of that role, having a sporting director involved, I know you said when Dan came in it's something that you've had before and you enjoyed. Is that something you would want again?
I think that's not my decision. I think that would be something the club sit down, analyse everything that's happened to this point, and then try and find the right balance for the club going forward. Certainly from my own opinion, I will have my opinions and I'll express those to the club at the right time, because it's about making good decisions and making sure we're running effectively as a football club as best we can.
Andy?
Hi Eddie, just on Dan, how do you kind of personally sum up the job that he's done at Newcastle United in his time here?
I don't think I should be going there, to be honest, Andy. I think that's something for other people to reflect on. Certainly as a football club we need to reflect and make sure we move forward stronger than we were before. I think that's got to be our aim. But yeah, I don't think that's right. I'll comment on that.
Just on the injuries, you mentioned especially Joe coming back after so long out. We've talked about how that might make him feel. How does it make you feel as a manager who spends a lot of days with these players to see the journey that they've been on in their injury crisis and then get themselves back on the pitch?
Well, you go through lots of different emotions with the players. So the initial disappointment of the injury, and then with Joe's situation, he was battling so hard to come back, and then he had a couple of setbacks along the way. They're difficult moments because a player just wants to play, wants to be fit, wants to be free to express himself in a positive way. And Joe's had that limitation placed upon him with his body, and it's been very, very difficult for him. I think he's handled himself really well. I think we've seen him mature even in the last few months, where he's had to show a different side of his character to come through this period. And I think as long as he comes back in full health, we'll see a better Joe Willock for that experience.
You said after Bournemouth that the team weren't quite at full power yet. So I guess the question is, what does this team need to make it back to full power? Lots of little things, I think, or maybe not so little things.
Obviously, getting full strength squad would make us, I think, give us a much better chance of doing that. Confidence is also another key defining factor to any team, and I think it goes without saying that during December we lost a little bit of confidence, but hopefully that's returning. The balance of the team still, as I said, due to some absentees, isn't probably at its optimum, but it doesn't mean we can't get positive results.
Just one on Kieran Trippier. I think he's the first Newcastle player in quite a while to record 10 assists in a season. How impressive a stat is that for a right back, and how impressed have you been with this turnaround in form that he's had over the last couple of months, I suppose?
Yes, I think it's a brilliant stat for a fullback because he isn't just a goal, like the final pass maker, which he has been on a number of occasions. He's also the guy that will play a lot of creative passes before the goals happen. So he's been absolutely fundamental to a lot of our good work down that side of the pitch. Really pleased with how he's, as you said, returned to his best, and also his leadership skills behind the scenes are still second to none. So he's such a fundamental part of our play.
And just finally, it's no league win at Arsenal since 2010. It's quite a long record. Obviously, this is way before your time as Newcastle United manager. But just generally, why do you think that some venues, some stadiums carry that sort of record for certain clubs? And what can you do about it, I suppose?
Well, I imagine the reason for that is because Arsenal are a very good team, first and foremost. Sometimes you get good runs of form at stadiums. Sometimes you get bad runs of forms at others. It's our job now to try and break that, and that's a big incentive for us.
Top man. Thanks, Eddie.
Alistair?
Hi Eddie, 8pm kick-off in London, another tough one for the fans. Is there anything the club can do about that? Any dialogue you can have with the Premier League or any decision makers on that?
Look, I think we do, but unfortunately for our supporters, we're very much at the hands of the Premier League, and whatever decision they make regarding to kick-off times, we just have to turn up and play.
Elliot Anderson and Matt Targett talked about them being close for a while. Are they a little bit closer again? They're
a little bit closer. Still not seen them training, but they are due, I think, back very soon. So that would be another huge boost for us.
There were a few players at the darts last night enjoying Luke Littler's performance. Is it nice to see them socialising together? They're friends as well as teammates?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so you need to give me a list of names, please. Hopefully it wasn't a late night.
No, soft drinks only.
They weren't in fancy drinks.
Oh, okay, that's maybe they should have been.
We saw Joe White's debut. I just wondered how the other youth players are doing. We've obviously seen Louis do really well this season, Joe coming through. Any others that you think we might see soon? Alfie Harrison scored the other day.
Yeah, look, we're always prepared to give young players an opportunity to play. I think that's been one of the real benefits of this season, seeing Louis' emergence. Joe's come back from his loan looking a lot stronger for that experience. Hopefully we get more of our squad back and we look stronger in that perspective. But if there are opportunities for players that deserve it, they'll certainly be given them.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Simon at the back.
Just wanted to pick up on the kick-off side again. Appreciate you saying that the club does what it can, and ultimately you've got to play when you're told to play. But some of the loyalist fans in football are being massively inconvenienced. The subject has been raised in Parliament. Would you like to see something done about it?
Yeah, I think for me, the supporters are the most important people here. They want to come and see their team in a safe way, in a way that they. It's not easy to get to Newcastle to London anyway, but to do it at that time for some people will be almost impossible, I imagine. So of course for me they should be the first people we think about.
Thanks, Simon. Damien?
Eddie Keith mentioned Mikel Arteta's unhappiness from the first game. As a manager, how long can you hold on to that kind of emotion, and when does it become counterproductive?
You can hold on for a long time, trust me. I think, I've held on to things for certain things that have happened in a game, a moment, an incident for a long, long time. But I'd only hold on to it though if I think it was a positive thing, not a negative. And I'm sure I'm not speaking on behalf of Mikel here. I'm speaking on behalf of me. I'll hold on to things that I think give me more motivation or more drive to succeed.
Can you just ask about Alex Isak? Given Callum's situation, how careful do you have to be with Alex and bringing him back?
We'll only play him if we feel he is fit to play. We won't take any risks. We're in the hands really of Alex and the medical team, and we'll make the right decision for both the short and long term.
Thanks, Damien. Lee and then Chris.
Eddie, on Dan Ashworth, obviously, he's gone now. We've already spoken last week about him being privy to certain information, but I guess there's information you won't access because you'll have an idea in your head what you want to do next season. Is that fair to say? You can't get in your head, basically.
Right, okay. Well, I hope not. That would worry me. Yeah, no, I get your point, and I think that I have my vision for the team of where I want to take the team in the future, and as far as I know, only I can access that. So, yeah, I think that's a good question, and that's a very vague answer.
And just on Arsenal, I mean, last season you got a 0-0 draw. Then you frustrated them. I mean, going in this one, it's almost like if you're offered a point, you might take it, but I know your mentality will be to try and get the full complement still, regardless of form.
Yeah, and I'd never go into a game taking a point. I'm just not built that way. We want to win. We will do everything in our power to prepare to try and win. We recognise that it's a big test for us, especially as Keith said, with Arsenal's run of scoring form in the last few games. The test for us is to defend better than we have in recent weeks, while still bringing a threat to the game and being creative. We've been really good in that respect, I think, for the last few games. We certainly need to bring that as well.
Just on to back to the left back sort of subject, where do you stand on that? Obviously Dan Burn come off the other day, Livermental come on and did okay. Is it as simple as just swapping them two players over?
Well, of course, there's a lot more that goes into that from my perspective in terms of choosing the team, because tactically it has an impact. Lots of other areas of the game it impacts, but also I'm looking at how the players train as well. I'm looking at what they do during the week to prove they should start, and it's an interesting area of the pitch, but I've got more decisions than that to make. I've got decisions in every position, probably bar midfield at the moment, and that's great to see that competition for places return.
Cheers. Chris Waff.
Morning, Eddie. How's Fabian Shared? Is he fit to play?
Yeah, he's fine.
And in terms of, you said earlier that you'd like to give your input to the club at some stage on the next sporting director role. Is that something that the club will come to you about? Are you going to be involved in the process of becoming a new sporting director?
I don't think I'll be involved in the decision-making process, but I think we will have discussions on sort of the role and how I see that. But again, I don't think that will be definitive. It will be the club's decision, and rightly so. But of course, I think it won't just be my opinion that they will listen to. They'll be listening to lots of different opinions from lots of different people. And hopefully in the end we just come to the right solution for the football club, because hopefully the next person that comes in will be at the club for many years, and will be able to take the club in the direction that everyone wants.
I don't know if you saw Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments, but in case you didn't, I've got them here. That he was asked about the Newcastle supposedly won £20 million compensation for Dan Ashworth, and he said, "That's a bit silly personally, I won't get dragged into that. What I do think is completely absurd is suggesting a man who's really good at his job sits in his garden for 1.5 years." What's your response to that?
I don't think I can respond to that, Chris. I don't think that's, for me, I'm not involved in those discussions, and I'll stay well away.
Thanks, Chris. Dom, Luke and then Craig.
Touched on it just to Chris before. How important do you feel it is in terms of the recruitment of a new sporting director that your opinion is listened to and taken on board as a manager?
I don't know if it's important that it's listened to or taken on board. It'll be the club's decision to get the opinions and then decide which is the step forward. Obviously, I have an opinion. I have an opinion on everything to do with the club, but that doesn't mean that it should necessarily be listened to. That's not my right to make that decision. But certainly the inner workings and making sure we have good relationships with people, that certainly helps the process. And I think that's probably more important than anything.
Yeah, and the extra time on the training ground in recent weeks, how do you feel your players, now the squad's been bolstered slightly, have benefited from that?
Yeah, I think it's been really, really good to train. I think we've seen the benefits, I think, in some of the performances. I think the players have needed that period. We look better for it. We've been able to introduce a couple of players back into the squad. The squad looks healthier. The vibe in the squad now is, I think, better than it was a few weeks ago. So, all positive, I think.
Yeah, in terms of the return of Joe Willock, how important is that, not only for your midfield, but for a player like Louis Miley, who you've had to almost flog in a way, that play more than you would have liked?
I probably wouldn't use that word, but yes, I get your point. There's been moments where I would like to have rested Louis, but really just for his own benefit, being so young. I haven't had that luxury to do it. But I have to say, the times that I have withdrawn him, he's always come back looking fresher and better for that. So, yeah, it'd be great to keep Joe fit, to give us more options in that area of the pitch.
Luke?
One of your popular sort of comments you came out with since being Newcastle manager is, we're not here, I'm paraphrasing, but we're not here to be liked, we're here to compete. Last season, a sort of fundamental of what you did get under the skin of opponents. You irritated them, you frustrated them, you annoyed them, you wound them up. Do you think you've lost that a little bit?
I think you could say that, because we haven't been as competitive results-wise. So, of course, if you're not winning games and taking points off teams, I think naturally you could look at it and go, well, they're not getting under the skin of them as well as they used to. I think game management itself has become more difficult to do because of the rules, which I think has been a good thing for the Premier League. We're seeing quicker games, less stoppages in play, apart from VAR, really. So we're seeing a much more fast-paced game. So I think there's probably more to your comments than just a simple yes and no.
Joe Willock, when you arrived, and he's obviously a legacy of the former manager and the former regime, what were your impressions of him when you got him, started working with him, and how good do you think he can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got great qualities, Joe. I think athletically, to have him and Joelinton in your midfield, I think is, just from an athletic point of view, means you're covering a lot of the areas of the pitch that you need covered, both from an attacking and defending perspective. So I think when you take his legs out of the team, I think our midfield has missed that. He's also got an eye for goal, and I think his run of goals when he was here on loan was exceptional for someone so young. And again, you need goals from everywhere, so we've lost a goal source, which has been really important to us. I've really, I think, developed a strong relationship with Joe. I think I think I tried to push him hard, and I think he's responded quite well to that. So I think there's a healthy respect between us, and I'd love to see him back doing well and playing well, because he has the qualities that we need.
Thank you.
It's Craig?
Morning. Have you spoken with Dan since this time last week?
No. No, that's a lie. Yes, I have, yeah. Sorry.
What was said?
That's between me and Dan.
Yeah. And how important is it for this club, for Newcastle, for you guys, that you get the best deal for you as opposed to the best deal for Man United or Jim Ratcliffe or Dan Ashworth?
Well, I think in these situations, of course, it's about Newcastle from our perspective. But that, again, that's for other people to make those decisions. I'm not involved in that in any way, shape or form. I'm preparing the team to play Arsenal.
Thanks, Craig. Dom Shaw?
Just on Dan, if another sporting director does come in, is the priority someone who's in for the long haul?
Well, I think I said last week, ideally in that role you are in the position for a long period of time, because I think that's where it's a bit like being an academy manager in charge of the academy. You're not going to see the end result of your work for many, many years, because you're putting things in place that take time. And for me, that's the same as a sporting director. For me, it's a longer term role, ideally.
And on Alex, his injuries have disrupted his time so far. Do you still think the best to come from it here at Newcastle?
I hope the best to come. I mean, I think it's a difficult one. People will talk about his injuries that he's had here, but he's still contributed massively for us. He's been an incredible player. There's no one else like him in the Premier League, in my opinion. He's got talents that can transform our team to being one thing to another. And I'd love to see him stay fit and get the goals that he would love to score for us.
Thanks, Tom. Oscar?
Did you leave on good terms with Dan back to the game. You haven't beaten one of the top 3 sides away from home since you've been there. It's not easy, of course, but is that a slight concern for you?
Yeah, well, I didn't know it, so yeah, that's a. Thank you for pointing that one out. Yeah, I think that's another thing we have to accomplish to become the team that we want to be. Beating everyone, top teams, mid-table teams, the lower end teams in the Premier League away from home is difficult to do. But that's certainly something that we will set our minds to.
Simon?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Just one of the questions that the fans were asking after the match last week. I know he's only 18, Lewis Hall, but can you afford to spend sort of up to 30 million on a guy who's not really near the first team this summer? If that's the deal. In terms of making.
So I don't really understand the question.
The fans asking, with the rules for spending being so tight, and the deal's 30 million, can you spend 30 million on a player who's not near the first team at the moment? Is that a difficult decision, or has the deal been done already? Is it committed?
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, he's near the first team. Yeah, I mean, I think a broader look at this one is that every transfer we make is so important because we don't have an endless amount of money to spend. Financial fair play will restrict us not just now but in the future. So every decision we make, we have to try and get right. You're never going to do that in the transfer market. There will always be mistakes. So I'm not really speaking about Lewis here. I'm speaking generally the importance of every transfer that we bring in.
Is there a possibility that was mooted at the weekend that if he's classed as an academy player, then he doesn't count towards FFP? Is that rule correct, or I'm just asking you because I don't know?
We'd have to ask someone else because I don't know either.
Martin?
Sorry about that.
Sorry, just to go back to Dan, has that been a disruptive incident for the club in the last 2 weeks?
I think for the club, maybe more so than me. As I say, I'm coaching the team and with the players every day, so it's not really affected me at all. But for the players, for the club, obviously there'll be things now going on behind the scenes that wouldn't have been.
Okay, and just going back to Arsenal last season, the fiery game you squared up to Mikel Arteta. Do you expect the same? Do you want the same?
I don't think squared up's quite. That's painting a different image to the one that I remember. But I think you've got to. Mikel's a very passionate guy. He will defend his team. I'm the same. I will defend my team. But I like to think there's a lot of mutual respect between us both.
Can his Arsenal team win the league?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think they're there on merit. And I said earlier, if you look statistically, they're at the top of the metrics for a lot of what we look at as being really important in the game. So they're where they are on merit. I think they've got very, very good players. Of course, they've got an outstanding manager. So they have everything they need. It's our job to go there and try and make it a very difficult game for them.
And is what they've done, high energy, spend well, kind of the example you're trying to follow a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think we have done that to this point. You look at our recruitment over the windows that we've had here. I think we've recruited really well, but we had a long way to come back from, and we're still trying to catch the teams above us.
Thanks. Just Jordan to finish.
Just going back to the left back situation, what does Team Leverando have to do to stop games, and do you see him as a left back?
I see him as a fullback who can play both sides. So yes, what does he have to do? He has to, every time he enters the pitch, he has to play well, which he has to this point, in my opinion, and he has to train well, and that's all he can do.